here we are. This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat, bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more.
I think that can be very much applied to sex too. This concept of dropping so deeply into presence and focus and interest and intrigue with the other person that everything just kind of, dissolves away behind us.
So you've actually named one of my personal kinks.
Ooh.
Attention, paying attention.
Tell me more. I'm here, I'm listening.
So you named this like extreme focus and attention, and how that has the capacity to just kind of like blow out the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And when I'm in erotic space with somebody and I know that I have their full attention and they're paying attention to what I'm saying, what I'm asking, what I'm doing, it's just very hot.
Yeah. What do you think that is?
I think it's like for me, it's a connection thing because I am paying attention.
Yeah.
I know I'm paying attention. And when I met in that attention space, it's very, feels like, this person can play here with me.
Yeah, they can play. There's like a depth. It's almost like the concept of desire. If somebody's purely present with you, then they're fully desiring to be there with you. And to me, that's like the safest space to be in, when somebody like 100 million% desires to be focused and there with you.
Yeah, there's something really sexy about that. And I love when people are paying attention and I can like prove it.
You can prove it.
Yeah, when I can like ask questions, see if they're paying attention, and it becomes a part of the game.
The game, tell me more. Unfold the game.
I mean, I like games. I like playfulness. When I'm playing with power dynamics, games are a huge part of how I stay in my erotic endurance and how I stay in erotic connection. Because if I didn't have these sort of like tools and games to pull out and like creativity, really, sometimes I'm making these games up on the fly, and it's like very specific to who I'm with. But the games are a way of, I can play games to test people's limits. I can play games to test people's capacity to say yes or say no. Mm-hmm. I can play with people in games to test their capacity for dirty talk and saying words and phrases that I want to hear that are super vulnerable and hard for them to say. So it's like teasing out what I know people want to do and want to express with games.
I love this. Like our dynamic when I first met you was very playful. And I think for many people, they might struggle with playfulness because playfulness is super vulnerable. It's very authentic. It's creative. And how many people get focused on, like the end goal, or they get focused on, productivity, that they lose the sight of playfulness. Yeah. So how do you support, how do you facilitate, how do you inspire people into, being playful?
It could come like a lot of different ways. Just a game that I play with clients, sometimes animal wrestling. And sometimes I'll use a deck of cards. Sometimes I'll just ask people to pick an animal. And I say, what animal do you want me to be? And they're like, I want you to be a lion. I get a lion a lot, like a white lion. I'm like, great, what are you going to be? I want to be a cheetah. Okay. Uh-huh. So we got these two cats, and like, how do these wild cats smell each other? And how can they circle each other? And can they create tension? And who's going to win this battle of wrestling, right? And so it becomes this like movement. How do you move like a lion? How do you move like a panther or a cheetah?
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, getting back into your animal body of like feeling yourself move, feeling yourself breathe differently, experience senses differently, but also just, I mean, that's playfulness of like,
Yeah.
we're not really animals and we are. And so it's like tapping into something that's fun and, childlike a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, very childlike. And yet we as adults, I think, can get caught with this, like, I'm not supposed to be a child, or I'm going to fail at playing if I start, because that's something that's very new. How do you help somebody through that?
I think that's the biggest thing that people have fear of, is the failure piece.
Yeah.
And our culture, and specifically with children, I'm a father to a 19-year-old, and even like when he was growing up, there was this feeling of like he needed to like have it perfect, instead of like actually learning the process to draw a painting or draw, whatever it was, Play-Doh, or there needed to be like, it had to look exactly like the castle.
Yeah.
No, like we practice. If you think about things as practice rather than like that term, practice makes perfect, that phrase,
Yeah.
it doesn't apply to sex actually, because there's so many other factors. Like I've practiced my whole life. I've had so many sexual partners. I've had a ton of practice, right?
Yeah.
And there's still times when I'm with somebody and it's just like the connection is not there, or that person's not quite there, or I'm in a different place and it just doesn't match. I don't go, that was a failure because I'm a failure. More like, what can I take from this experience? Like, what were sort of the elements that worked? And then also like, what didn't work? And a lot of times what I find is that if I come out of a situation and I feel like, oh, this didn't go quite like I wanted to, I didn't create a strong enough container for myself. I didn't ask enough questions about what that person is potentially into, what they're wanting to get out of our time together. All these things that are actually super important and make it easier when you're actually in physical contact with someone. So there's always a learning. I don't look at things as failure. I look at things as like, what can we garner from this to do it differently next time?
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.